Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the USA Library's Art Galleries Artist of the Week. But actually, this week we have the Author of the Week, Miss Mary Palmer. Hi, Mary.
Hi, how are you, Paula?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for being our Writer of the Week or Author of the Week, as you wanted to be called. They're kind of you can use them either way. But thank you so very much for doing this with us this today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, it's quite an honor to be here. And I went to the University of South Alabama and graduated,
Woohoo!
got a master's degree. I was the first person happened to get the degree in English, master's degree in English with a concentration in creative writing. It just happened the program started at that time. And then I'm a native Mobilian and I love to travel. I like to use those travels in my writing, and I write in very many different genres.
Now you have a pretty extensive history. So you've done writing, but have you always been a writer? I think you've had your hands in other things.
I have. We had a photography studio, Palma Studio, still existing. My husband and I also did photojournalism and wrote columns for a couple of different newspapers. So that leads to writing a lot. It stems out from there.
Okay. Well, when did you decide to focus just on creative writing?
Uh, well, I had written a book first about George Wallace, and I went back to work on that. But anyway, then I got
Mhm.
into creative writing, and that was when I started in the master's degree program, and we had stories that we wrote for that.
Okay. Very cool. Very, very interesting. Now, today you're joining us regarding some pretty exciting things going on this week. We've featured three of your books this week. We featured your book on tourism writing, which, if people will visit the USA Library's Art Galleries page, they will see the cover of the tourism writing book, and they will also see a link to purchase it at Amazon because it's still available on Amazon. Now, the book showing tomorrow will give our audience a little preview of that book. It's the book that you recently wrote, Boynton Oak, A Grave Injustice. Now, what can you tell us about this book, Mary?
Okay, this book was extremely interesting. It started in a kind of unusual way because my friend Maureen McClay, the college friend, she approached me and asked me to co-author with her. And I did start it, and she had done some research. She had actually worked on this book for 20 years. She found
Wow.
by Francois Diard, but it was more of a didactic type book where, just the facts, man. So when I got into it, I decided there was so much more to the story. And at the time, Maureen was really busy with other things and decided she couldn't continue. But however, I did get her to write the foreword, which she did a great job. And I kept researching. And this is the story of a young man, 19 years old, from Litchfield and New Haven, Connecticut. And he came to Mobile, which was a booming city, in 1833 with um, uh, around 3,190 people here, but it was growing fast. And he had already achieved being a printer, a journeyman printer. So he didn't have any trouble after he worked his way down here on a boat. Didn't have any trouble getting a job because the boat captain helped him. And he worked in the printing business, and he boarded at a man's house named William George. And he took care of this friend and had shared a room with him, a man named Nathaniel Frost. Well,
Mhm.
the upshoot was that he lost his job, and Nathaniel was sick. He had consumption, which is TB. So when Charles lost his job at the printing company, then he still took care of Nathaniel. And then along about May, which actually May the 20th, Nathaniel Frost was murdered in Church Street Cemetery. And since Charles Boynton had said he was going to leave town, he was running out of money, he borrowed and begged from everybody he could, then
Mhm.
they caught up with him and put him in jail. Mobile's first jail at that time is now the Condi Charlotte House on Theater Street,
Oh,
and
wow.
he was shackled to the wall. It didn't look like it looks now. Then
Mhm.
it had no windows and no heat, and it was pretty unbearable. But he had made friends, and had a fiancee, Rose de Fleur, who was a baron's daughter. So she did visit him, but her father objected, but she still continued to visit him. And he wrote poetry to her. Well, his poetry is so good. I've used almost all of it in my book that DR had picked up on. And it
Okay.
was good. It was actually published in newspapers while he was in jail. So he was tried, and when he was tried in November, I suppose at that time they had to wait for a judge to come through. And when he was tried, he was convicted of the murder.
Mhm.
Sad, so it was all circumstantial evidence, and one juror believed he was guilty from the beginning, so he was not qualified. Another juror was a British citizen,
Oh,
well,
wow.
not qualified to serve, but he still was convicted. And because that was not brought up during the trial, they would not let him use it in an appeal. But when he went to the gallows, he had to walk down Government Street from Condi Charlotte House to somewhere near Broad, near Oakley, which was being built at the time.
Mhm.
We didn't know where the gallows was exactly, but it was in that general area.
Mhm.
And
Oh.
because he wrote the poetry and was well known for that, and probably because Rose de Fleur was his girlfriend and she was from a well-known family. Her father had been in Napoleon's army.
Mhm.
Then they did not make him do what they usually did. Usually, the prisoner sat on top of his own coffin all the way to the gallows, but in
Oh,
this
wow.
case, he was allowed to walk behind it. Now, this to them, they called it a procession. It was a real event. And about 1,000 people came from all over and just picnicked and like a party. And
Mhm.
later, some people wrote about it. And one child, I think, was probably horrified. There's something they used in my book that came from DR's book and other sources saying that this had a traumatic effect on him. But he
Mhm.
was gallows. And then he tried to talk his way out of it. Okay. The upshoot from all that was that later um, someone else confessed, and I won't give it all away, but
No.
it it will be in the play. But that was 60 years later. One was 12 years later. So now we first worked to get a marker. He is buried right there in Potter's Field on Bayou Street, across from the Zion Methodist Church. And the wall that used to be around that area must have fallen down or something. And he had said, "A tree will grow from my grave. Sooner or later, I'll be vindicated. The tree will prove my innocence." Well, the tree grew right away, an oak tree, which is what he
Mhm.
said. Of course, a lot of oaks grow, but look how many hurricanes we've had since that time
Mhm.
now. And this one survived. And I was
Now,
really,
the tree on the cover of the book is the
yeah,
tree.
that is the tree. That's not his body. The
Okay.
bones, but that
Mhm.
is the tree. And
Okay.
there was a marker there in 1905, and nobody knows what happened to it, but it was put there by friends of the murdered man, uh, Nathaniel Frost, just to prove they could say that's where his killer was buried. And then in 1971, another marker was removed. So we worked really hard with the help of Historic Mobile Preservation Society, and we formed the Boynton Oak Society to get a new marker, which is in place. So it developed into a whole lot more than I anticipated. I didn't have any idea it was going to get this big. So we had the first play at Gulf Quest
Mhm.
just 2 days before the COVID restrictions took place on March 13th last year. And then we had another one at Oakley in November. So it worked out really well. People were interested in it. And we've
Mhm.
got gotten Victor Gaston, the pro tem for the House of Representatives, to present a bill. I had gone through a big, long procedure to try to get the posthumous pardon going, but it has to go through the legislature. So a law needed to be changed.
Mm-hmm.
Victor the law presented, and it's been through two readings, and it will go through a third reading possibly the next time for the full house, the next time that the legislature meets, and then it has to go through the Senate. But we've got a lot of support, and
Mm-hmm.
Vic has been really wonderful about doing all the work. It's not easy to get something like that done. It wasn't even easy
Mm-hmm.
to mark up. So that's what's in the works now. And then we do have the play scheduled. We decided to have a real event. So we're not just having the play at Oakley, but we're having a trolley ride in the footsteps of Charles Boynton with a guide and a guided tour. The driver will be the guide, Arthur Clevenger. Really very good. And then we also have a tour of Oakley, and then participants will book an autograph book, and that will be four things they'll be involved with. So that's coming up this Saturday and this Sunday. The
Mm-hmm.
ticket events are $50, and the tickets for individual events are 20, except the Oakley tour is just 10. And we will be taking tickets at the door as well. It's the ones who have already made reservations. Oh, and another thing, the Battle House got very involved with this, and they had packages. I don't know if they have any left, but they had a wonderful package with
Mm-hmm.
breakfast and transportation and parking and a night at the hotel. So
Okay.
we know that people with one lady called me. I wasn't taking reservations, but this lady called me about additional information, and she had an accent, and I asked her, "Are you from England?" She said, "Yes." She was here in Texas and was trying to do anything she could to, um, to travel while she was here. A man called me from North Alabama. He had been to see To Kill a Mockingbird, and they were interested. And then we have some dignitaries from city offices that are coming. There was
Okay.
in an article in Fairhope Living too about this. But this is going to be something definitely new for Mobile. We want this to be an annual event. Uh, Different people have produced or directed it. This time it's Dr. Thomas Rowell from South Alabama, and I'm sure he'll do a wonderful job. And it's outdoors, and we'll have chairs, and we'll have distancing if people want it. So, and we'll have water and stuff for them to drink in case it gets hot, which it may do.
Yeah, and somebody hinted around that there might be some wine offered too at the event.
Yeah, we'll have that too.
Little wine.
It's real festive, and the
Mm-hmm.
last time we had 100 people when we had it at Oakley, and we had as many as the place would hold at Gulf Quest. So we're hoping to have a really good crowd. These people, all of the people, the members of Boynton Oak Society, have worked very hard, and so did the people producing the play. And Mary Newman has worked real hard, the manager of Oakley. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of effort been put into this, and it's going to be done in an unusual way. And then next year we plan to have. I have a 3-act play written. This is a 1-act play, but we couldn't do the 3-act because of COVID. But
Mm-hmm.
we have a 1-act play, so I think it will be pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we also have descendants that have been quite involved. Preston Boynton and Shane Boynton have come. Preston's from Dothan and Shane's from Lockley, and they've been involved all the way around, and they're going to be there. And I think maybe some other Boyntons. And Palmer Hamilton, who is an attorney in Mobile, I'm sure many people know him. He does work for the congressman in Washington, and his great grandfather was the minister named William Hamilton, a Presbyterian minister who actually counseled Boynton in jail. But
Mm-hmm.
Boynton claimed to be an atheist, although his poetry had God in it. But he never could convince him, but he did walk to the gallows with um, Charles. Charles invited him to walk to the gallows, and
Okay.
Palmer Hamilton had a painting of his minister and ancestor. So we've
Okay.
got ancestors, and it's been pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I think one thing that is so important to me, I don't teach history, I teach English. I've taught a long time at Faulkner State, in Fairhope and Bay Minette, and then I've taught I'm teaching now full time at Faulkner University, and I'm teaching classes adjunct right now for
Mhm.
Huntington College. And one thing that makes me feel like this is worthwhile is what British poet uh, Stephen Spender said: history is the ship carrying living memories to the future. And
Mhm.
I that is so true. If you lose history, you can't get it back.
Right.
If
That's
it's gone,
definitely true.
and this book has a lot of history, a lot of mystery, a lot of romance, and of course the crime.
Mhm.
And we did not pretend to solve the crime or even to say whether he's guilty or innocent, but simply that because he didn't have a fair trial, everybody, including Ken Wall, who's a constitutional attorney in Texas, said that this never should have happened in Alabama. It should have been a mistrial. So I
Mhm.
thought important. One more quote: Martin Luther King said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." And I
Mhm.
think that rings very true here. But who's going to care 186 years after crime, even if the tree's still there and they're looking at living proof that what he said? And of course, that's just a legend, but it's
Mhm.
all oldest and best known legend.
Oh
So
wow.
about the story is all the facts are true. You have to, of course, you don't know what they said, so you have to embellish a little bit and dialogue and everything.
Mhm.
But that all the facts are true.
Mhm.
It's and it's kept true. And I think that if you don't bring these things up, they get lost because this one book that was written, it's just a little small book, like 100 pages. It's highly documented, but this I don't know that whether it was ever really produced in copies or whether it was just copies. I think they must have been produced in copies because when I did an interview with Matt Green, and he's been very, very helpful, former Judge Matt Green, his
Mhm.
attorney, uh, I saw that he had a copy of the book, but who knows how many copies there were? Do you know by any chance?
Mm-mm.
I don't know if that was just one copy they made, and just put it
Mhm.
in the library somewhere or what. But the one that I
All
have,
things are possible with books, especially the older you get, it just depends on a lot of factors.
yeah, well, this one book is there, and like I said, he did a whole lot of research,
Mhm.
and uh, that's one thing that's always difficult is the research, and it's very
Mhm.
hard to get everything you want, and you get so far, and then you come to a standstill. I
Mhm.
was trying to find out where Rose de Fleur. I heard that somewhere, and I don't think I had proof of this, but I heard that, and my book doesn't go beyond the crime itself, not the crime, but the end of that part of the story. But anyway, I heard that she finally did marry, but I can't find any record of her being buried here. And I
Mhm.
also heard that her father went back to France.
Mhm.
Uh, the mother may have been buried here, but I mean, I researched every which way I could and could not locate any burial spot. Oh, they don't. They know that Nathaniel Frost is buried in Church Street Cemetery, but nobody knows where. I spent a lot of time with the director there. Nobody knows where he's buried,
Oh
and that's
wow.
odd because they kept pretty good records.
Mhm.
The cemetery has so much history that
Mhm.
anything. It's too bad that the wall fell, but at least this. When I first went down there, I took pictures almost every tree there. I didn't know which one it was, but then I
Mhm.
found it is the tree on the corner, and it's the one that has the stakes around it. Don't know who put the stakes. It looks like they were put there just to keep people from tramping too close or driving too close. to the
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. Oh, so I've read your book and it's very exciting and very interesting.
Um, it was. I think you had a couple of questions for me.
I did. You answered a good number of them. The one that you didn't, I don't think I heard you say was, what did you learn from the process?
Oh, I was so surprised to find out. I knew, as I said, I'm from Mobile, so I knew the story, but you just hear stories, you don't know all the details. But I was really surprised to find out somebody had confessed that much longer after the crime. And here's
Mhm.
one other thing Boynton had his, let's see, years later, it wasn't Boynton, years later in Haneyville, Alabama. John Tyson, who was the district attorney's great grandfather, the one in Mobile. Okay, he tried a case in front of a person who became a Judge Richardson, and Judge Richardson, they had just come up with this other person confessing 60 years later. So this was 1894. Judge
Mhm.
and brought forth the fact that circumstantial evidence didn't always prove a case.
Mhm.
So the Supreme Court ruled on that and they said, okay, you can't use it anymore. So it changed the Mornington case, changed the way Supreme Court evidence was viewed, and also how jurors were chosen because they
Huh.
started being more particular. So it changed two things, and most likely not just in this area or this state, but most likely all over. Because when those things usually have a effect, a spread out
Mhm.
to because even in those days, news didn't travel like it does now. But I'm sure the word got around. Judges talk to each other. So I'm
Mhm.
glad that Boynton's case did do that. And by the way, we met with John Tyson, the current John Tyson, several times, and Shannon Brown, who is my editor, and he did not know his grandfather was ever involved in that case. So
Oh wow.
he wrote a big blurb for the back of the book about that. He was just really, really surprised because he didn't have that information before. It's kind of funny when you find like Ancestry and 23andMe, when you find out things about your family that you
Oh
didn't know.
yeah. That's amazing. Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Is there anything else you want to share regarding the book or the upcoming event?
Yeah, I just hope everybody will come to this and will help us continue to have it every year. And um, I think that it would be a boost to Mobile. And I do presentations for places. I'm doing one tomorrow, and I don't just sign books. Sometimes I'll do other things, to talk about it, not to play something else. And I think that I have another book coming out shortly
Hmm.
entitled "Commas for Soul Searchers," and it should be out in the next couple of months.
Okay.
It's a collection of short stories and poems and things of my own, but some of them are stories of
Yeah. If you
folk.
want to hang that up or turn it off real quick, don't answer it. We'll all hear it.
Okay, I cut it off.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
don't answer it or we'll all hear it.
uh,
We don't hear the we don't want to hear the tax man.
no, I think that people will also like to know that you and are
Oh
getting a book co-authored, and it's
yes, yeah.
Mississippi Delta blues
Mhm.
singer and a murder and the mojo, and that's
I know that that's the other thing we decided to share with everybody is that we are working on a murder mystery that involves Mississippi Delta, Mojo, and a little bit of murder.
I think that that will be fun to do. It'll take
It's
a
been
little.
fun to write.
It's getting there, and it is fiction, but almost all fiction is based on some facts, right?
Oh, definitely. And poor Mary, she's working on this book with a librarian who's particular about details.
Yeah, everybody comes at it from a different perspective, don't they?
Hmm. Oh,
But
definitely. So the characters are made up, which is it's just funny. Is their characters aren't real, but they're historically accurate, so that you could go to the same time period and their history relates to the time period, even though they're not real. So,
and then we do use some names like Robert Johnson and people like
mhm,
that. Oh, and by the way, one thing that's helped our book along a lot, my book along a lot, is that Mike Turner wrote a song about it. I met him
yes.
at Fairhope at one of my first signings, and he said he'd been trying to write this song about the Boynton Oak, but he couldn't get a handle. And after he read the book, he told me he had it, and he's
Hmm.
written. I was real thrilled, and it will be played. He unfortunately he couldn't be there Sunday, but the song will be played by someone else. He had given absolute permission, and I think people will really love it because it ties things together.
Yeah,
And
no,
about
we interviewed Mike Turner a few weeks ago,
right,
and he talked about the Boynton Oak, and he talked about writing the story, and he's also working on one for the murder mystery as well, which is interesting.
he's working on two.
Two, yes, two for the with the murder mystery. So it's adding a little tune and a little authenticity, if I can get that word right, to the story.
And about writing in general, just for people who sometimes ask, well, um, how do you like to write? Well, I like to let my characters lead the story forward.
Hmm.
And when you become a part of your story and you really begin to live it, then they become someone you can empathize with. And you have to get to that. And then it comes to life for readers if you really
Hmm.
put yourself in their shoes. Now, it's you don't exactly want to put yourself in the shoes of someone that you think, or at least had been accused of being a murderer, but
Hmm.
you can. I could empathize the whole time I was writing. I kept thinking about Boynton and thinking about him being 19 years old and how smart he was and intelligent, and he was really mature and he was all on his own. But just imagine someone that young being hanged uh, for
Hmm.
murder. What if he didn't do it? And
Hmm.
oh, they Obedience wanted a solution to the problem. They wanted a scapegoat, and they
Hmm.
didn't want Billion. They wanted somebody, well, a Yankee.
Hmm.
That was just fine at that time. So I think
Yep, this is a
that's,
little before Yankee, so he was a Yankee before Yankee.
and I think uh, that one thing I think you should never do if you're a writer is never give up. I had one book that was
Hmm.
put aside for years and had New York agents that didn't sell it, and finally a publisher happened to be here when I was speaking to Pensters and took it and sold it. So um, a lot of times everybody's got a story. So if lots of times when I go to presentations, I'll ask people, well, what's your story? And I did that once at a country club with a group of lawyers and attorneys. And do you know, almost everyone except one gave me an answer, and it was
Hmm.
all. That's why I really wanted to um, get my short story collection out there because I think people like it. Some are funny and some are not.
Hmm.
Uh, but you just have to wait sometimes. Things don't come up and just get published. And
Right.
uh, I'll just tell you one brief little thing about the book, Commas for Soul Searchers. I was sitting at South typing one day on a computer, and this young couple, boy and girl, stood behind me, and the boy said, I could write a book if I knew where to put the commas. And I thought, whew, if it was that simple, we have books we couldn't even get on shelves. So you
Hmm.
really you don't want to ever give up. And
Hmm.
so you really have to keep going. And if you're a writer, you're going to want to keep going. You don't feel comfortable when you're not writing. Isn't that true, Paula?
Hmm. That's definitely true. You just have to keep on pushing through it. Which leads me to the question, the final question, because we've talked for 30 minutes. Thank you so much
Okay.
for sharing. We are at the University of South Alabama, and we have students that we deal with every day. And what advice do you have for the students? Just what you've learned, a bit of wisdom that you've gathered through your life.
Well, I think that everybody has talent. And I think that if you draw on that talent and do what you feel comfortable with, then, or else if you go out and research so much that it becomes your talent, then I think you can be successful. I think you have to, and you have to be very observant to be a writer. You have to notice all kind of little things, and uh, sometimes you might get a story in a grocery store line, or on a bus ride, or
Mhm.
at a skating rink, or anywhere you might be. There's a story everywhere. So I think that students have to just learn to do that. And my other advice would be to write things down, or to take a tape recorder or a computer and use the reminders and jot down your notes, because
Mhm.
at least for me, things don't come to me the same way but one time. And if I
Mhm.
don't write them down, then that turn of a phrase escapes and it's gone forever. So,
Mhm.
and never, ever, ever give up. Just keep going no matter what. We all have a talent. Some of us don't even know it, but we do.
Mhm.
But you have to realize it and use it, whatever it might be. But if you're a writer, you have to. Writing is not easy. It's
Mhm.
not simple. You don't just do it once. You don't get it right the first time. So think about it that way. That you're going to have to. And practice helps. Just like anything else. You play the piano. If you don't practice, you're not going to get good at all. But if you
Mhm.
keep practicing and read good things, read things that are not necessarily lofty, but just that are well written, and then you don't pick up bad habits.
Mhm.
Is that question?
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Mary. Thank you for joining us today. And everybody, make sure you get tickets to the Boynton Oak Festival happening this weekend in the chat area. I put a link to where you can purchase those tickets. And have a great weekend, Mary. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was quite an honor to be here and be the author of the week. And I hope to see some of you at the Boynton Oak Festival this year and next year and the next.
Thank you so much.
Bye
Bye.
bye.